How many times have you been told that you need to add this vegetable or that fruit, and we need to be feeding 20% vegetation in our dog's bowl? How many times have you heard that? I know in the last decade, I have been hearing it more and more and more and more. And it doesn't sit right with me. It hasn't sat right with me. I know that, yes, are there benefits in the sulforaphane from the broccoli for particular dogs? Yeah, probably. Are there benefits in the antioxidants of a blueberry? Okay, we know this for sure in humans. Do we know it for sure in dogs? Maybe with some dogs. A lot of what we know is based on kibble fed dogs. And there is so much to be said for the need for learning different things for kibble fed dogs versus fresh fed dogs. And not just fresh fed dogs, but dogs that are fed high meat, bone, organ content diets of animals that are grown appropriately, meaning they're getting the amount of sunlight they're supposed to get. They are grazing on the grass they're supposed to be grazing on. They're being fed whatever food is actually species appropriate for them. They're being raised in a regenerative way that is very natural for them. That is the ultimate, right? That is what I think we're all looking to be doing with our animals. And there are so many tangents that we can go down with vegetable matter for our pets. And I have today's guest talking to us about vegetable matter with dogs specifically. And I'm so excited for this because this is Dr. Conor Brady for our 250th episode of the Pet Parenting Reset. I was so excited that he is joining me today, and not just joining me today, but to talk about this matter in particular, because boy, oh boy, does this differentiate people. This makes people go, I am team vegetable or I am team no vegetable. Like, this is a topic that really divides people. And for good reason, because we don't actually know. We don't actually know. But there are some things that we do know. And that's what Conor is here to talk about. This is also, I'm going to just go ahead and say this because I haven't known how to say it, but this is also why I'm moving away from providing complete and balanced recipes to my one-on-one clients. Can I still do it? Yes, of course I can. Do I think it's the most beneficial for our animals? No, I do not. And so it's not something that I am going to continue to provide for my clients unless absolutely necessary. And I'm not sure when it would be necessary, but I have the ability if and when I actually need to have that happen. That being said, it's not my intention to be doing that any longer. I just don't think it's actually beneficial for our animals. And Dr. Conor Brady explains a lot of the reasons why. I think we are missing the boat when we do not feed whole prey. I think we are missing the boat when we are not feeding the skin, the fur, the feathers, all the things of the animal that if you watch a dog or a cat, any form of canid or feline in the wild, that they eat it and there's a lot of benefit to it. So Dr. Conor Brady explains why in today's episode. So please join me I'm so excited for the 250th episode with Dr. Conor Brady. And when you are done listening to this episode, I would love for you to reach out to me, whether it's on Spotify or Instagram or YouTube or wherever else, and let me know if this changes how you think about feeding your dog or your cat at all. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I want to keep this conversation going with you because it is one of the most important conversations we can be having right now, especially with all of the things I've been trying to bring into 2026 with how we actually need to be treating our dogs and cats like dogs and cats. the circadian rhythm, the sunlight, the clean air, the frequencies, all of the things that nature gives us that we completely overlook. So, without any further ado, here's Dr. Conor Brady. Welcome to the Pet Parenting Reset podcast. If you're new here, my name is Jess, and this is a space where we talk about all things health span and quality of life for your pets and you too. I'm so excited that you're here. Let's dive in. Right into it. Welcome, Conor Brady. How the heck have you been? Tell me about that beautiful little baby. Happy
Oh,
belated birthday, all the
yeah.
things.
As you say that, my wife just sneaks that into the room, which is a little monitor. And I'm like, "Where are you going, Elaine?" She goes, "Oh, I'm just heading out for whatever." So if the baby starts crying, I'm going to have to go. So very topical you asked me. He's good. He's good. Yeah, lovely little baby. Easy going. I've had two girls at the start, and the boy seems to be very, very simple character. So maybe that's reflective of the whole difference in the sexes. Maybe, who knows? But going well so far.
I don't know. Well, I was the first boy and my mom had a boy next, and she has always said my whole life that boys are easier. So
Yeah,
what that
everybody
says
seems to be
about
saying that.
me, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that was a very nice way of saying it to you. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see. So
So
far, so good.
I know that we are kind of short on time today,
Yeah.
and I apologize
No,
for
we do
all of
again.
the delays.
Yeah.
This is such a big topic to me. I just want to hear you talk as much as you want about the plant problem because it is we still have so much divide around plants for dogs.
Yeah, we sure do. Yeah, I did that talk last year. I said the plant problem, and in hindsight, I probably should have given it a easier title because people hear things for the first time, particularly when you're at conferences and you're kind of tired and you've got 45 minutes to listen to this person. And so it definitely kind of startles people. We shouldn't feed plants. And so God, really hope people don't take that message away from it. But I don't, another thing that kind of bothers me sometimes is that there's a need to be dramatic these days. There's a need to have the thing that's a problem. And if you don't listen to this problem, it's a real hook. It's how Instagram reels are done to you, YouTube reels. It's like, here's a problem that you don't know how to address, but I do. And you're like, I do actually want to know the answer. And so that bothers me too. I kind of bounce off that information. But I did see a great YouTube video by a fella called Dr. Paul Mason, he's called Low Carb Down Under is his YouTube title, YouTube name. And he had a great video, real simple presentation, him stand on stage, and he just said, "Look, what do you know about plant fiber?" And, you think you know stuff about plant fiber, but I never actually dug into it at all. I never thought of it as a really a gritty kind of topic for me to spend much time on. And then he shows a few studies that I was very surprised at. He said, like, you probably think that fiber bulks the stool with water. And you would have thought that. You would have thought it had some sort of an impact on that. And he said, no. The stools of humans are always between 70 and 75% water, no matter what is going on in your life, unless you're in some disease state where the body's trying to flush something out or something dramatic is happening. And I thought, I am surprised because I thought if you ate a lot of fiber would do certain things. And he said, no, the body will always keep your stool at that because it's needed for the speed of how things move through your body and how to get it out. So, but he moves on from that. And he said, there's a couple of other things we don't understand, we didn't know about fiber. What do you know about fiber and constipation? And he put up this fabulous slide, set of 4 slides. It was a famous study. There's been loads of them. It's not the only one. So it's not like an outlier of a study. This is what the studies say. And for like 20, 30 years, we knew that plant fiber, adding it to human diets, didn't relieve constipation in humans. Now, that's a big one because it's like, what? I mean, that was the whole thing, from in the 1950s, some dude, what was his name? He started looking around and why did people in Africa not get so much colon cancer and hemorrhoids as people in the West were getting? And that was because they eat more fiber, apparently. Now, he never did any studies on that. And that kind of theme worked very well at the time because the food pyramid had just been kind of created by the Kellogg company and the Seventh-day Evangelists, who are a vegetarian vegan group over in the US, for people not in the US that are listening to this. And the food pyramid was heavy on carbohydrates at the bottom. We all grew up with it in school, you know, lots of bread and pasta and grain at the bottom, and then veg, and then meat, and then dairy. Today, if you flip the thing upside down, you'd probably be better off in life, although that's hard for people to accept at the moment. But at the time, the whole plant fiber, good for your guts idea was great for the message being put out, which was eat more grain, which was great for the American economy at the time, which was growing a lot of wheat. The corn belt was coming on side, and they wanted to sell this stuff as much as possible. And so uh, the idea that plant fiber was good for constipation was just one of the parts of this thing, but nobody really thought to test it. But a big review in the early 2000s said plant fiber seems to have little to no effect on constipation. And the main reason for that is because there's about 12 different causes of constipation in your body. There's many, many different reasons why you get constipated. And a lack of fiber, be it plant or otherwise, is just one of the 12 reasons why you get constipation. The other 11 are nothing to do with plant fiber. And so if you have constipation, it might be, well, which type of constipation do you have? Most of us eat some plant matter. Most of us are eating meat, and there's fiber in there as well, and we can talk about it later. But for there to be a lack of fiber, it doesn't hold up with the studies. But here was a study that he showed that, and it's one of those studies that for me, when I see it, I go, oh, well, that's that out the window. It's like saying all swans are white, and then you see a black swan and you go, that statement no longer holds. And what he showed was they got 60 or 70 of the worst constipated humans on the planet. I mean, this is people don't poo for 7 days. They have a lot of bleeding, a lot of pain, a lot of bloat. I mean, utterly miserable life with this issue. Cannot imagine how bad it can get for these particular patients. So they isolated 70 of them. And they said, okay, let's follow the dietary advice from who gives dietary advice? The CDC, perhaps in the US, I don't know. The NHS, which is the health system in the UK, HSE here in Ireland, doesn't matter. They all say the exact same thing. Lots of plant fiber for good gut health. And when you're constipated, ramp up your plant fiber. That's the advice. You can Google it. It's still there. So they took these 70 patients and they said, okay, let's follow the advice from the authorities. They're hardly ever wrong about nutrition. And let's ramp up the plant fiber and see how we get on. And he had 5 or 6 different bars for abdominal pain, rectal bleeding, bloat, how often you're pooing, had all these different symptom bars. And they're all quite high in these 70 people. And he ramps up the plant fiber, and not he, somebody else did the study. And what happens? All the symptoms, they increased. Every single one of them across the board all went up from, high to really high. And he went, bloody hell, this is not what they told us on the pack. They said if we ramp up plant fiber, constipation would drop, And that nice position, dog. We see you, peekaboo, just getting in on camera. It's like somebody's kind of crashing your selfie. But so they ramped up the plant fiber, and the constipation symptoms got worse across the board. All 70. There wasn't like a group of 10 that did fantastic. It was a completely aggravated their condition. So they said, okay, that didn't work. So the next thing that these scientists did was, okay, do you know what? Let's divide the advice by 50%. Let's divide the plant fiber additions by 50% and just see what happens. Because if it went up with more plant fiber, what should happen if you cut it by 50%? So they cut it by 50% and you get the third slide. And the third slide is the symptoms fall. Huge chunk, huge drop off. Maybe say 50% is bad, but a big noticeable decline as soon as you drop the plant fiber. And they went, okay, let's see what happens when we cut plant fiber completely and move to meat and dairy and all those sort of diets, borderline carnivore diet, which is what people call it today. Let's see what happens when we cut plant fiber completely. And what happens? All the symptoms, he presses the next slide and nothing appears. There's all the symptoms there and there's no bars. And he goes, this isn't a mistake. Every single symptom in every patient went to zero. And I was like, how can that possibly be? With everything I thought I knew about plant fiber, how can that possibly be? Plant fiber is essential for gut health and constipation and all this. And he said, it's just not true. There is no evidence whereby you take a random selection of people with constipation, 12 different causes, ramp up the plant fiber. He goes, here's the truth of it. When a stool mass, when you pick up a stool, a poo, about 30 to 50% of the weight of that stool is dead microbial mass, dead bodies of bacteria. It's incredible. It's actually how a hummingbird works. Hummingbirds drink nectar. They drink sugar. Okay, they don't eat protein. They don't eat, meat. They don't eat peanuts. They don't eat vegetables. They just eat sugar. So how does a hummingbird grow It's proteiny body. The whole thing you see in front of you here is made of protein. Where do they get the protein from? They farm it. They feed the bacteria in their guts and they absorb the bacterial bodies and they get the protein they need from those bodies. The same way a cow works. A cow eats grass. There's not a lot of protein in grass, but they farm it, and the bacteria not only produce cool fats called butyrates, which power the cow, but they also die off in huge amounts. And when they die off, they now have proteins that they can absorb because bacterial bodies are easy to digest. So that's how cows do it. That's how hummingbirds do it. But when we eat lots of plant fiber, what happens to stool? They say that 30 to 50% of a stool is dead microbial bodies. Well, it turns out that if you have a high meat diet with not so much plant matter, it's about 30% plant body or microbial bodies. If you eat a high vegan diet, it gets up to 50% bacterial bodies. What's the point? Bacterial bodies love carbohydrates and plant fiber. And if you eat lots of plant fiber, you will grow more bacterial bodies in your system because there's more food for them to eat. And when they grow, they die off. So what happens is when you eat more plant fiber, you produce more poo, more stool. But if you're constipated, producing more stool into the colon is not what you want. I put up a picture of a dog's nose peeking through the fence, you know, and there's a little hole and the dog's nose is just through. And I was like, it's not more ass this dog needs to get through that little hole in the fence, you know? It's just, it's not more cars on the road. And so it's completely counterproductive to give more plant fiber to a person that is struggling to pass stool, unless you're absolutely positive they had a lack of plant fiber. If they'd been living on pure white rice, pure starch, you know, with no fiber in it, and they weren't eating any meat, where you get fiber from too, then, you know, maybe you might think, okay, plant fiber might be handy, but in the patients that they've tested, it's just not the case. So when I see a study like that, I go, bloody hell, I have been completely thinking the wrong way about plant fiber because I deal with a lot of constipated dogs. And it's like, oh, just put in more plant fiber to help the dog. Absolutely not. The very next place I went, and I'll finish on this because I'm going off on one here, but the very next place I went is something that I was already familiar with, and that was IBD, dogs, and particularly humans with IBD. And what the studies show across the board is you must cut out plant fiber. And it's not just plant fiber, what we think of, which is like the fiber stuff in plants that help them grow rigid and strong. It's not just those. There's these other things that you might or might not have heard of called FODMAPs. And FODMAPs is an anagram, is FODMAPS. And so they go saccharides and polyols and whatever else it stands for. And those FODMAPs are other types of hard to digest bits in plants, which are in the kind of fiber category, but they also feed bacteria at a furious rate. And some people, they struggle really badly. They'll grow a huge amount of bacteria quickly. So what happens is you get this bloom of bacteria in your small intestines, which results in a lot of gas. So plant fiber, FODMAPs, have to be reduced to virtually zero in patients with IBD, human patients with IBD. And this is not even up for debate. If you type in any IBD studies, don't go to the government websites. You go to any study and type it in. It's like in these studies, and even the authors themselves will say, well, we reduced plant fiber or FODMAPs and their issues fall away. And then, of course, as soon as the patients recover, what do? Well, we put plant fiber back in again because plant fiber is so important for your health. And so these IBD patients go up and then cut it out and whoop, back up again and back down, as we all see with IBD. Cannot get on top of it if you're with conventional doctors because they're so sure plant fiber is good for health. Finally, the last nail in the coffin was the colon cancer study that came out about half a year before I did the talk. I was driven to do the talk, and that was plant fiber has no effect on colon cancer. Plant fiber intake. That's a review of hundreds of thousands of people. It was utterly enormous. There are small studies that disagree with that, but when you look at the large ones, they don't. So on the things that I thought were absolute concrete, I didn't need to look at, you know, like water stops you being thirsty type facts. I just assumed the things about plant fiber and I thought, wow, they really don't apply because I knew about plant fiber IBD, but not the constipation bit, not the colon cancer bit. And I was like, wow, if I don't know this about human nutrition and plant fiber in human nutrition, what do we not know? What do we know or is going on in dogs? How could dogs possibly be better with plant fiber than us? I mean, we are meat and plant eaters. We have longer digestive systems. We have cecums. We have like a slow digestive system full of bacteria like lactobacillus and bifida that want to digest this fiber. Dogs are meat eaters. smooth like a pipe, very fast. It's not a fermentation kind of chamber. It's more of a digestion. They focus much more heavily on digestion, acidic guts and bigger gallbladders, bigger pancreas, enzymatic digestion of this easy to digest meal. Yes, they ferment some bits and pieces, not so much plant fiber, although perhaps little bits and pieces, who knows. But it's not there for plant digestion. Our body is better at that. And then, of course, a cow being even better because it's even longer with more dead ends and whatever. So how could a dog be better with plant fiber than us? And it turns out they absolutely aren't. The studies show when you feed plant fiber to dogs, they struggle to digest really key nutrients. The most important one that hopped off the page very quickly. God, you're right saying you just have to wind me up because this topic really winds me up. I'm sorry, but this last bit, if I could just say, some of the most important studies on kind of adding plant fiber to dogs is, yes, it slows down the passage of digester through them. Is that necessary for a meat eater? Is that beneficial for them? Nobody thought to check. But when they, because it's good for humans, we thought, oh, it might be good for dogs, but they have a different throughput. But what happens is plant fiber binds bile acids. So carnivores work slightly differently to us. They have taurine conjugated bile. So the bile that they're little underneath from the gallbladder releases bile, and it's taurine conjugated bile. And when it gets into the body, it digests any spare bits of taurine that are around from the fat, and then they bring it back in again. It's like a little cycle. And taurine is the most important nutrient in meat eaters. It's how their antioxidant system runs. And when you give them plant fiber like beet pulp or all the other leftovers of the human food industry that they pump into dry pet food, when you feed a lot of that to dogs, their ability to reabsorb taurine plummets. And so if you're worried about DCM in dogs, which kills, huge amounts of dogs each year, I think 1 million dogs a year of your 90 million in the US die of DCM. It's from a lack of taurine. Now, is it a lack of taurine they put in the pet food? It sure was in the 1970s. They stopped putting meat completely into pet food, and then they realized all these tens of thousands of cats and dogs died at the time. And they realized, bloody hell, something's going wrong. And then they realized there was a lack of taurine, and they said, oh, now we add taurine to our food. Well, it would have been great if you just gave them meat, but instead they say taurine. That's why they say cats need taurine. It's like, well, cats need meat. And that was the whole advent of AFCO and the whole pet food thing. It was all about DCM. But we know that all kibbles cause DCM, grain-free pet food, cereal-based pet food. None of them are immune to it. And was it a lack of meat going in? Possibly. Or is it that too much plant fiber is being used, which shows that it struggles? So that was just one. That was my very first dip into it. But there was many, many other little factoids we could talk about with the effects of fiber. So that was the start of it, if you can believe.
Well, that's fascinating. When I first started trying to figure out food for myself, it was because I had a kidney stone, which is incredibly painful. I don't know if you've ever had one. I never wish
I've heard.
anyone to have one.
I've heard.
And so I went down the rabbit hole of like what causes kidney stones, which is everything in the world, apparently. And but I really went down the carnivore or animal-based diet like rabbit hole, and I felt better than I ever felt in my whole life when I
Yeah.
went on an animal-based diet, which was strange to me because I'm like, we're omnivores, aren't we? Like, I
Yeah.
don't understand
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
But it did. It made me feel amazing and just made me like double down on what I was doing for my pets, knowing that they're carnivores.
Yeah.
Um, but it does make me wonder, like, well, two things. One, when I had Dr. Billinghurst on, one of the things he said to me, we have so much information today about the microbiome and how diverse we need to have the microbiome and all of these things. And he's like, really? How do we know that?
Yeah.
Like, we're
Totally
not
agree with him.
God.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree with that. I disagree with hardly anything he never says. He's always on point, and I have totally moved away from all that myself.
If you're here, it's because your pet isn't just a pet. They're family. And you can feel when something's off, even if the labs look normal. That's why I created Wild Wellness Pet and the Wild Wellness Bioenergetic Test to help you see the hidden stressors your pet's body is quietly carrying and give you a clear, holistic starting point. Head to wildwellnesspet.com to explore the bioenergetic test and the apothecary and take the next loving, protective, proactive step for your pet's healing journey.
Yeah,
Like, we're
totally
not
agree with you.
God.
Yeah, yeah. Totally agree with that. I disagree with hardly anything he never says. He's always on point, and I have totally moved away from all that myself to the point that I don't recommend over the counter probiotics and all that kind of stuff. I'm really questioning what we know, particularly applying what we know in humans to a dog. Very different system, very different setup. And yeah, the whole thinking that we understand what's going on, thousands and thousands of species, bacteria and viral particles and yeast and all competing. It's like a highly complex natural system. And we just start lobbing in more wildebeest, more wildebeest, more wildebeest, or more lions, more lions. And it can work for a little while, but that as we see in like wild parks and stuff, when you're making in these introductions or introducing some invasive species, you want to be very careful. And the studies are catching up on probiotics too. So I'm not sure about the richness thing. I'm not sure about it in dogs. There's no long-term studies showing that they're healthier. They just say the bacteria flora was richer, therefore they're going to be healthier. And I was like, well, that therefore bit is just marketing nonsense. In science terms, show me the therefore. Show me what happened to the dogs after a year, 2 years. We now know that taking probiotics with antibiotics actually increases. It's harder for your body to return to normal when you take probiotics with antibiotics. Who would have thought? I've been telling people to take probiotics with antibiotics for years, but a study following them for 6 months showed that if you took probiotics with antibiotics, it took your body in fact didn't return to the normal floral state. Whereas if you took the antibiotics, it was far more likely to. It was like these things are just new to us, and we don't understand it. We think we do because it's a real humanist thing to look in there and understand. Oh,
Mhm.
we know what to do, but and dogs are different again. So yeah, anytime people isolate some weird bacteria from a wolf turd or a caveman's butt crack, I always think, bloody hell, is this really what my little Pookums needs here? Um, the fiber thing would be a far more fiber. Talking about fiber is at the front end of the debate. Probiotics is in the middle. So probiotics are the actual life themselves. How could you possibly understand what's going on in that system? It's right for you in that moment. Do you know that identical twins living in the same house have only share 20 to 30% of their biome? Only 20 to 30% living in the same home. So probably on a similar diet, but because of the stressors and everything else with the identical genes, completely different biomes. How could you possibly think you could sell a product that suits everybody? It's just nonsense. We all interact with the world completely differently based on too many factors that we can understand. What's going on in the biome is just a response, and it suits that environment. Piling in the more people into the messed up city probably isn't the best way to go about it, finding why the city went wrong, and then the people will come. So that's what the fiber approach is. But it's like, well, what type of fiber are you going to use to fix that? We focus on FOSS, and we focus on um, apple peels, and we focus on these things that we know can help us when we're gut sick, and we deploy them in dogs. And if you've got a really bad gut sick dog, so the studies show, if we've very very small studies, 6 or 8 terribly gut sick dogs, and they get probiotics, it can improve the speed of recovery. But that's comparing dogs that don't get anything. It's like, well, maybe if you gave them a pinch of chamomile, they'd do even better, and they wouldn't have any problems in half a year. Or they don't compare it to a normal way of recovering the dog, a spoon of bone broth, a few times a day. Well, have you done any of those things? Colostrum, a number of things can help, but you compared it to nothing. So we have a few studies showing that plant fiber can be used in diarrhea cases. So I just leave that door open going, yeah, if you want to believe that, I'm sure it's better than nothing. But did you try animal fiber instead? And they're like, what's animal fiber? Right, now we're talking. So fiber is the prebiotics. Fiber is the stuff that the bacteria eat. And fiber really at the end of the day isn't this mystical long filament that only exists in plants. Fiber is just indigestible material. It has a number of different functions in the stool, and plant fiber does operate differently to meat fiber, which is your collagen, elastin, keratin. People know these words. It's all your skin, your hair, your nails, the hard to digest bits of steak. If you eat a steak, you only digest 80, 90% of it. The rest of that is fiber to your gut flora. It's undigested food that gets to your colon, and there's bacteria going, yummy, I'm having a bit of that. That's how it works in cats. Cats can actually ferment hair. They can make fatty acids from hair. So when you say, oh, you must use plant fiber for fatty acids in carnivores, that's not true. They ferment those fatty acids. They're slightly different fatty acids because we focus on short chain fatty acids, which you hear a lot of, and we love them and they're great in humans. But carnivores, their system is more geared towards branched chain fatty acids, BCFAs, and they get them from fermenting animal fiber. And so we've got big studies of domestic cats, loads of studies of cats in the zoo. We've known for years that if you just leave the hide on the outside of the horse's leg, with horses over here a lot, that you feed the zoo animals, they're the cleanest, that if you just leave the hide on the outside of the meat, that the cats suffer less uremic toxins, which is one of the top killers of cats, bad teeth and kidney disease. And so if you just leave the gristle in the hair and the animal more complete, so now they feed cheetahs with the skin on, feed cheetahs their prey with the skin on. This is important gut health, things that we've known about in zoos for 30, 40 years. And yet that outdoor component of that meat fiber component is completely stripped away, even with pre-made raw dog food. Nobody wants to see a feather hanging out of it. Nobody wants to see a claw. My wife would see that and go, oh, this stuff's crap. But actually, it could be that we are actually taking away a really important part of the diet. We talk about, 3% plant fiber going into some products. It's like, well, 3% fiber would be good, but from where? And so that was the push of my talk. I said, there are some issues with plant fiber. It may not be a requirement in cats and dogs at all. It might be that the requirement is actually the indigestible parts of the animal that we're still not really including in pre-made raw dog food. That was my point of my talk. But by that time, people were going, Conor Brady saying stop eating blueberries. I'm like, I didn't say that, I'm just trying to stoke some debate here about what are we feeding? We're not feeding humans here. And what we thought plant fiber did in humans didn't even do that. So why would it do that in dogs? So it got the debate going, which I love, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah, well, that is where, like, the next thing I think of, it's like, okay, well, now we have all of these people talking about the incredible benefits of this vegetable or that fruit, or, the sulforaphane and
Yeah,
the broccoli so my mind goes there, but then my mind also goes to the amount of vegetable matter that a lot of companies are putting in their food
yeah,
to balance it
mm-hmm.
to
Yeah,
AAFCO standards, right? And, I mean, cats obviously different than dogs. I have a kitten that has been nothing but raw fed since I found him at, like, 6 weeks old, and I didn't have anything thawed, and I was like, I'll just give him some of the dog's food tonight," because my dog is she's at a stage in life where she's wanting gently cooked foods, and it
yeah,
has a lot of vegetable matter in it,
yeah.
and oh my gosh, the litter box for the next 3 days, I was like, "This is never
Yeah,
happening again."
yeah. No, no. I'm not surprised. I think with
Yeah.
the plant matter that goes into raw dog food or into cooked dog foods, from someone who formulates diets, I can tell you that there's nothing nutritionally that I need from plant matter. There is blueberries look good in the label, but there's no nutrient in there that blueberries would be higher in than any other piece of meat. I mean,
But
meat.
they're superfoods, Connor.
They're superfoods, and so they look super on a label. But listen, are they superfoods for a dog? The whole point of blueberries is polyphenols. Polyphenols are actually toxic to a lot of animals, but we've learned to use them over time, and they're actually now beneficial to us. But that's not the case for all animals. Not the case for cats, and it might not be the case for dogs. Adding blueberries to a dry-fed dog might be beneficial, but do adding blueberries to a raw-fed dog benefit them the same way? They have a different antioxidant system based on taurine. So it's like I've a whole talk coming out on carnivore antioxidants coming out in September. It's gonna make me even less friends. But it's like, well, there's anyway. Yeah, the only plant ingredients that we put into, let's say, raw dog food products, but cooked will be the same sort of principles. The only ones we lean on, because we have to get these readings up above to these AAFCO standards, which is dry pet food nonsense world, but we have to adhere to them so you can say complete on the label. Because if we say complimentary, people go, oh my God, my dog will die. So to adhere to those ridiculous standards, we have to include some ingredients like things like seaweed, because it comes with a bit of iodine. People put in things like brewer's yeast to get the B vitamins up. One that really eludes us is vitamin E. They want way too much vitamin E in dry pet food because they use crap mixed tocopherols, which the dog doesn't use as well as natural vitamin E. You only need a very small amount of that from grass-fed animals. That'd be the right amount. But instead, we have to get the levels up here. So we put in things like pumpkin seeds and hemp seed powder and stuff. So those plant ingredients go in for a reason, because we're targeting something, we're trying to get a manganese reading up. But the carrots and the squash and the rice and the carby additions that go into a lot of the cooked products aren't there because there's a nutrient in there that your dog needs. There's nothing in there. Carbohydrates are not required by the dog, so that's why they're not on the pet food label. There's no requirement set by AFCO because they don't need plant carbohydrates or fiber. It's not a requirement in their diet because nothing has ever shown that they need a carbohydrate. Cats and dogs live on meat and fat. It's called ketosis. So that's the way they're happy to live. So that's why you don't need to feed carbohydrates to a dog. So when they say, "Oh, it might be a source of energy," it's like, yeah, Mars bars and Coca-Cola are a source of energy. How much of them should I have? So it's the whole reason that those bigger carby ingredients go in is purely cost. It's a cheap filler, and it makes a nice sticky kind of paste as well. As opposed, you want that kind of pate look some people like. So those bigger ingredients, that's all that is. The smaller ingredients we target for reasons that I said, but the bigger ingredients isn't because there's a single. You might say, "Oh, I feed spinach for iron." Yeah, you think there's more iron in spinach than there is in red meat. Heme iron blows plant iron out of the water, and it doesn't come with all the oxalates and anti-nutrients and FODMAPs we just talked about. So that wouldn't be why you're using spinach at all. It looks good and it's green. Although spinach comes with a bit of B vitamins, I suppose. So, if you had to get that reading up, it might be a way to do it. But compared to brewer's yeast, not nowhere near it. So generally those ingredients are because we eat those things. And so when we buy the food, we want to see it on the pack because, oh, that looks nice. Potatoes, lovely. Irish people like potatoes. And so we put some potatoes in the products over here, and it'll be rice in China, and it'll be whatever in the US, so it's the local thing that people want to see, generally make it into the food product. Those tail end ingredients aren't there for the dogs. They're there for you, to pick it
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
So I know I want to be respectful of your time. What I'm hearing is that a lot of the information that we're getting about how beneficial some of these plants can be are more geared towards probably kibble fed dogs.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, I can see why you need some fiber in the diet. So a
Mhm.
little bit of plant fiber is probably better than no plant fiber. Bloody fly. So I'm instantly thinking, is there much fiber in a fly? So a little bit of fiber is better than no fiber at all. And there's a big question mark over it. It's called pica in dogs when they eat strange things, where your dogs are licking carpet, or xylophagia when they're eating grass and sticks, and coprophagia. And so they could be eating that for a source of fiber to help with their digestive system. But I always say, yeah, but if there was loads of hairy rabbit ears and hides and those sort of chews and gristles, raw meaty bones, all that sort of hard to digest matter, would they need all that stuff that they've been eating? No, probably not. They're probably using that because that's all they can get access to. But if you let him off in Yellowstone National Park, I doubt he'd be going after the blueberry bushes. He'd be looking for dead animals. So what we know of what dogs need, there's a tiny few studies where adding in some colourful plant matter into dogs helped them, but they're dry fed dogs on a high carbohydrate diet that weren't getting antioxidants from anywhere else. Um, does that prove that they need that plant matter? It shows that dogs with that disease in a cage eating high carbohydrate diets benefited from eating some colourful squash and leafy greens. That study exists, and carrots contain lutein. So yeah, okay, but it doesn't say that it's better than feeding those compounds from a meat-based diet. So we don't have those studies, and maybe there is some benefits to some plant matter, because if you think about it, a herbivore would eat those plants and then bioaccumulate those compounds, and so the carnivore would then eat that prey animal and benefit from the compounds. So it happens that carnivores are way more sensitive to those sort of compounds, like CBD. Dogs and cats need tiny amounts of CBD because they get it from prey animals. Prey animals generally take a lot more because they eat the plants containing CBD, not just hemp. So it might be that some of these compounds are beneficial, and when we stall rear cattle or chicken and ducks and turkeys that just get corn and never see the outside of it, they're going to have virtually zero of those compounds because they're not fed a rich diet. And so, yes, your dog might come around needing some of these compounds that are largely found in the plant kingdom. And so there's an argument there for, yeah, maybe. But to say that dogs fed really well on good quality outdoor meat and access to whatever bits and pieces, and that wouldn't be the case. That scientifically doesn't hold at the moment at all. But there's so much room for debate and maneuver in there. I just find it fascinating, But is it a reason to feed every dog 20-30% plant matter because that's what no, not really. There's no studies to support that, but there is studies to show that there's potential downsides to it. And nothing beats a meat, organ, bone diet, be it raw, or if you want to feed a cooked diet, nothing beats that. But I do think I'd be thinking more about the extra outside bits these days, whatever that is, not just your rabbit ears, because they come from quite a cruel industry in France over here. It's not a great looking industry, but anything out, like, whole fish or a fish head, nice and gristle and all that kind of stuff. Great food. So there's a number of different ways to do it, but we are just lacking the evidence at the moment, so it's what we thought was the case, not so fully sure anymore. That's all. That was my point.
So one last question. If someone were to add in some sort of vegetable matter, would fermented
Yeah,
potentially be more
it
beneficial?
does actually, yeah. And Answers Pet Food were actually in the audience as I was kind of slating plants. I was saying, listen, guys, I'm not having a go at the manufacturers because this is the way I would have formulated diets, the same as you up until now. And so it turns out that fermenting is a fabulous way of reducing anti-nutrients in plants. I never liked that word anti-nutrients, but it does actually apply. FODMAPs, phytates, oxalates. These are things that get in the way of you absorbing nutrients. The plants aren't stupid. They have defenses. And we are evolving to get around them, but we can only get around a couple of them at the moment. We're not as good as a horse or a cow So there is a number of anti-nutrients in there that you don't want to eat too much of. They can turn your tummy, make you sick, particularly some people more than others. And so it turns out that fermenting is better than cooking on almost all of them. So it decreases plant fiber, it decreases oxalates and purines, it decreases FODMAPs really well. And so fermented food is a great way to do it. The only bit of that is that a totally natural food for dogs? I haven't a clue. If Billy Hogan was here, he'd be able to set me straight. He always does, because I always say, I don't know where I am with fermented food. The guys I work with, Nick and Brand, absolutely love fermented food. I just don't see dogs going around eating too much fermented food. There's also a huge amount of microbials that come with that. Is that totally natural for the dog's digestive system? Are you kind of giving him a probiotic? That isn't a totally normal way of him getting it. I think people try to say that the fermented food is the same as the fermented food in the hind gut of the rabbit. I'm like, he's not eating a whole lot of that. Your guts are left on the ground by dogs where they can. If the animal's any smaller than a rabbit, he might eat the whole thing because he's a whole prey eater. Unlike cats are a bit more selective. Dogs are pigs. They'll just eat the mouse, they'll eat the rat, they'll eat the bird. But if it gets bigger than that, up to rabbit size, maybe they'll eat a bit, but they don't eat the forestomach full of grass. That's just a nonsense that people said. Wolves eat the stomach contents of grass. Nonsense. Show me the video. It doesn't happen. I think there's 1 or 2 videos going around of a wolf doing that now. But there's thousands and thousands of studies to say they don't touch the stomach contents. It might happen here and there for some reason, but wallowing in the stomach content, grass, half digested grass, why would a wolf be eating that? So I think it's a good debate. I'm not sure if the stuff we pickled in a jar is the same as what's being fermented in the rabbit's gut, but if it works for you and you need to put the veg in for some reason, then that's probably the better way to do it.
Yeah, and my brother's cat, he will eat, like yesterday, he ate a whole lizard, but when he eats the bunnies, he always leaves
Yeah,
the guts
I'm not
there for us
surprised.
to clean up.
Yeah, gross. I'm not surprised. I mean, that'd be the last thing I'd eat. I don't eat.
Yeah.
I don't eat the guts of a fish.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
okay. Well, we're different. Dogs are different, but I can't see my dog eating the gut of a large fish. So they're too. No, that's not the stuff they're after. They're after the meat, the organ, the gristle, the bone. That's the cool stuff. I'm sorry I have to dash, Jess. I have
Yes.
something to do at 4 o'clock. So I was loving this, and I don't
Okay.
get enough time to talk about this. I actually stopped talking about it a bit because people are getting their knickers in a twist. Oh, plants. I was
I
like,
love
okay,
it.
forget it. Yeah, why not? Listen, even if you don't agree, who cares? Let's move. Like it's an interesting debate, but haven't seen any contrary points yet. Haven't seen any contrary studies that have been bandied around. None of that. It's just, if anything, I see people talking about digestive enzymes to help you break down plant fiber. And it's like, yeah, well, what are you feeding the plant fiber to the dog for in the first place? And you're giving a
Yeah.
product to help him digest it. Did you ever think that not might be the food for his gut garden?
Mhm.
So people keep on asking questions. It's a bit of fun. Wags my tail anyway.
Well, I love it. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing that with
Pleasure.
us, and have a good rest of
Yes,
your day.
absolutely. Yeah, start of the week. All right, Jess. Thanks. Pleasure.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Before you go, if today's episode got you thinking about what's really going on beneath the surface for your pet, don't forget to check out wildwellnesspet.com. You'll find the Wild Wellness Bioenergetic Test to help uncover hidden stressors, plus a curated apothecary of holistic remedies to support true root cause healing. Visit wildwellnesspet.com to start building a calmer, more vibrant pet from the inside out.